You know,
Hey, man, people are still buying tens of thousands
tickets.
each gig.
Paul
yeah.
McCartney, I think, is going on 80, and he just loves touring and stuff. And
a lot of people are kind of pissed at him though because his ticket prices are so insane. He's about, let's face it, I mean, those who really would love to see Paul McCartney can't really afford to see Paul McCartney. The tickets are insane. But you know what? It's his gig. You do what he wants. But don't tell me like, Paul McCartney looks out for his fans. No, he only looks out for those who can pay the most money. Isn't that right, Ian Castleberry?
Yeah, I'm not going to see Paul McCartney.
I thought about it, and I looked up the ticket price, like $375. Yeah, no. I'm not even sure.
If he was reincarnating John Lennon and George Harrison, maybe I'd pay that much.
Just have little blow-up figures on either side. Yeah, no, I saw $375. I'm like, I'm not sure I'd pay $375 to see Rush. Okay, who am I kidding? I would do that for them, but not for Paul. That's a lot of cash for sure. All right, buddy, great to have you in, and thanks for joining in on the McCartney conversation there. All right, Ian, but we got some goodies to get to with you. And let's start first with the Eagles. They're signing of former Giants and Panthers cornerback James Bradberry to a one-year, $7.5 million deal, another $2.5 million in incentives, just another key offseason signing, another big get this offseason for Philly. Everyone talks about the Cowboys, but guys, I think the Eagles may end up being the best in the NFC East this coming season. What do you say, Ian?
Yeah, Bradberry took a little bit of a pay cut to go to the Eagles, but now the Eagles' starting cornerbacks are James Bradberry and Darius Slay, and I can't think of another team that has a better starting duo. And then even their reserve, their nickelbacks, Avonte Maddox, Zach McPherson, I mean, their secondary is really formidable, and it has depth. And that they should be able to go up against any receiving core in the NFC, but certainly in the NFC East. So now, I mean, the Eagles, they add Bradberry, they added Hassan Reddick in free agency. They drafted Jordan Davis, Kobe Dean, who I know is coming off an injury, but I think he's going to be a steal in the draft. And then you look on offense, they added A.J. Brown. The Eagles went 9-8 last season. Yeah, I don't see why you wouldn't pick them as, if not a sleeper, that a favorite in the NFC East.
And they'll have the benefit of those understanding and thoughtful Philadelphia fans that won't put any pressure on those guys and realize, that they just want them to ease into it.
They'll give them a quarter and a half at home, and they'll let their team know.
Yeah,
they're one of the most very passionate fan bases, and really within a city for any of their teams.
Yes,
they really do not pick favorites. They cheer and they boo them all, and occasionally throw snowballs at Santa Claus. The Eagles looking awfully good. I like Jalen Hurts a lot. I'm really hoping. I'm not a Cowboys fan, and the Cowboys just continue to disappoint. Everyone comes into the season, it's going to be the Cowboys' year, and then they tank. So we'll see. Maybe that happens with Philadelphia. I don't think so. I think there's a different mentality in that organization than we see in Dallas. Speaking of organizations and mentality, guys, Baker Mayfield still with the Browns. Might be best to just hang it up or just hang on him, Ian, and not let him go, especially as uncertainty looms over Deshaun Watson's more than likely suspension. How do you think that's going to play out?
Under regular circumstances, I think that would be smart. Mayfield is going to be paid almost $19 million, but the way the Browns structured Deshaun Watson's contract, he's only going to be paid $1 million, guarding against the fact that he may be suspended this year. But I just can the Browns and Mayfield get past what has happened through this offseason? Mayfield has said things like, it's in the mutual interest of both teams to trade me. The relationship is too far gone to mend. Those are just words, but, reporters, of course, will bring that up. Maybe there are no hard feelings between the Browns front office, the coaching staff, and Baker Mayfield. But if they were to keep Baker Mayfield, I think he's a better option, certainly, than Jacoby Brissett. Or, if they were still to pull off a trade with the Carolina Panthers for Sam Darnold, those two salaries would match up. That would actually work really well, but I think everybody thinks Baker Mayfield's better than Sam Darnold. Or do the Browns having to pay even more to get Jimmy Garoppolo? And they probably won't, given what Garoppolo's cap number would be.
Oh, man. This is a tough call, Mike, for Cleveland at this point, but you got Jacoby Brissett, yes. But, Baker, that'd be, again, you just don't know what's going to happen with Deshaun Watson. And I think the Browns may be okay with Jacoby Brissett taking over in the interim, but I don't know.
Jacoby Brissett's he reminds me a lot of Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's just good enough to get you beat. It's just he's fine, but Browns have Super Bowl. He's a caretaker, but I don't know if he can. When you got to go play Buffalo, they're going to play Buffalo this year in November. Is he the guy you want against the Bills? But they have put themselves in a bizarre situation. I mean, I'm just thinking that they've got to know something that Watson's going to. There'll be a little suspension, but it's not. Nothing's going to happen with these legal cases, and there'll be a little suspension and such. But I tell you, they have put them in a really interesting situation. And from Baker, I know he wasn't great in some ways, but he did get in the playoffs 2 years ago, and so that's a good roster. But in some ways, you can kind of, like Colin Cowherd talks sometimes, you just got to go for it. You just got to take a big chance and go for it, like the Rams did with some of the moves they made. And so maybe they think this is, Watson. We're going to just go for it. Watson could be the difference maker in us going to the Super Bowl because it's a darn good roster. Don't you agree? As far as their roster is pretty darn good, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, even after losing Jarvis Landry, their defense is really good. And, if they get good quarterback play, there's no reason why the Browns shouldn't make the playoffs.
Yeah, agreed. And that is a tough division for sure, but it's right in front of them. And if they get Deshaun Watson, at least for half the season, going to be good for them. But it just seems to me like, now hindsight being 2020, it seems like the Browns said, all right, let's get Watson. And they never really worked on, what do we do? It seems that way anyway. Like they never planned, all right, well, what do we do if this happens? What do we do with Baker? Because obviously they're just holding him out there hostage, it seems like at this point.
Yeah, I'm sure Baker, if Watson gets suspended for 4 games, I'm sure, I'll be the starter for 4 games and turn over to Deshaun. No problem whatsoever. Don't mind that a bit.
Mike, am I detecting a little sarcasm from you? I'm just checking on that.
Just really, but Baker hasn't helped himself either with some of the comments he's made and stuff. He's been a little immature about some things.
He sometimes reverts back to his immature days. We're joined by Ian Castleberry. By the way, it is our NFL Gold Nuggets feature, and I'd be remiss to say it's all presented by David Kreisman and the great staff at DC Kreisman Jewelers. Well, Ian, now that he's been told he's a broadcasting bust, Drew Brees is looking for something to keep him busy. All right, now, Ian, if you're a betting man, would you put money down on Brees returning to the NFL? Some were saying that tweet that he made, touting that as a possibility, was more in jest than anything else.
I think he threw it out there. Maybe he was somewhat joking, especially with Tom Brady being in the news. But if a team showed interest in Drew Brees, I find it hard to believe he would say no. But does Drew Brees want to be a starter? Then no. Probably that there isn't a fit, but I think you can make a case for 5 or 6 teams that if Drew Brees wanted to try and be the starter or at least be a backup, he could get a job. But ESPN's Ed Werder reported that Brees had shoulder surgery 2 weeks ago. Now it's his left shoulder.
Oh, okay.
But he still wouldn't be able to play until October. And between that and being 43 years old, it doesn't seem likely that Brees could return realistically to the NFL. And I think there were questions about his arm strength even before he retired, that he wasn't able to make the throws that he had been prior in his career. I still think Drew Brees is going to stay into broadcasting. From all accounts that I've read, he just didn't like being in the studio. He didn't like doing the Football Night in America. He enjoys doing game analysis, and that's where he kind of got into trouble. He didn't do a very good job in the playoff game for NBC. I think that was Bengals Titans, I think. But Fox does have an opening. Fox could make space for Drew Brees if he wants to. If this is the closest thing he can get to becoming a player, going to the stadium, being there on game day, being on the field, talking to coaches, talking to players, studying film the week leading up to the game. If those are the sorts of things that really, scratch that itch for Drew Brees, I think he does want to stay in broadcasting, but he wants to call games, not be in the studio.
Yeah, boy, but Mike, the Saints adding, their wide receiver core is looking really good. It wouldn't be one I think he wouldn't mind returning to, but I think he brings up a lot of good points. I can't see that happening.
What's the old saying? The truth is always told in jest, So, Yeah, I can see that. Maybe he just, I threw up a flare to see if it might get answered and such. But, I think Ian brought up a good point about his arm strength really decreasing as the season during late in his career, and especially if he was healthy for a whole season stuff. You kind of see it down the stretch because Brees will always be a champion in New Orleans because he won the Super Bowl. You think but there was some awful good Saints teams late that didn't quite get over the hump, and Brees didn't quite have the games. Drew's lost some home playoff games, including that one to Tampa Bay and Tom Brady, where they really outplayed them in the first half, and it was just Drew Brees turnovers that turned that game around. I'm sure the Saints are thinking that could have been us in the Super Bowl.
As Ian Castleberry plays with the Wise Guys with Barrett Sports Media. Thursday's Talking NFL Gold Nuggets presented by David Kreisman and DC Kreisman Jewelers. Ian, Bills head coach Sean McDermott led a number of his players, including quarterback Josh Allen, to help heal the Buffalo community in the wake of this tragic shooting, and a shooting I think that's brought to light really the problem we have in this country when it comes to guns. And no one wants to take away guns, but I think it's fair that no one outside of military or even police personnel should be, having a semi-automatic weapon hanging at their house. No one wants to take away your guns, but there needs to be some kind of control on that. I get that. And this shooting brought it to light. 12 people killed, 13 people killed, 12 were African Americans. The shooter in a manifesto said why he was doing this. It was about replacement theory. I still don't understand that necessarily. But obviously, he wrote down his reasons. It was, as I think the police chief of Buffalo said, this is racist to its core. So for the Bills to come out the way they did, and I guess we're not surprised by this. I know Shoop was telling me on Monday's show, he's like, that's an organization I would love to work with because it's so special. And once again, not only the community, but the Buffalo Bills showing just how special that relationship is between the team and the community.
Yeah, Mike can probably speak to this more than I can, but I mean, certainly these sports teams are presumably parts of their community, right? And this is a great gesture by the Bills. I mean, it's not going to take back what happened. It's not going to heal everything, but it's a good gesture to get people to feel good, to show that there's support, to show that they're a part of community, and to get, to give these people just a little bit of, not joy, just a little bit of escape or good feeling amid what happened. And if I'm not mistaken, Mike, you might know this. I mean, the Bills used to train near that part of Buffalo, right? So
actually, they used to play on that street. Actually, the War Memorial Stadium, that's where they played at before they moved out to Orchard Park. So that's right down the street from where that terrible event happened is where they played a long time ago.
In that part of the Buffalo community as well. So I just think it was a great move by the Bills. Several players took to social media. Josh Allen, I know, Stephon Diggs went to social media in support after this happened. But to be there, to meet people, to give some hugs, give some support, pass out food to people who need it. This is sports has a way of uplifting communities and bringing people together. I mean, maybe sometimes that's overstated, but I think this is a great example of the positive role that sports can play in a community.
Yeah, it certainly was certainly not surprising. They were already tweeting out, Saturday night after the event that they were going to be doing something. And, Stephon Diggs, who's, before he came to Buffalo, no bit of a selfish guy. And, I mean, he flew back into Buffalo, because he wanted to be a part of that event and stuff. And I know Andre Smith, Bruce Smith, and Thomas Thurman, who lives in Buffalo now. Which I know that they are talking about raising some money for those people. So really, it's a unique community. It's one of the smaller markets in the NFL, maybe the second smallest to Green Bay, and the Bills are really attached to the fans. We talk with the Bills Mafia, and this was just a great example of the Bills giving back. And they interrupted their mini camp and went down there in mass. It wasn't one or two players; it was the whole organization down there. And some of the Buffalo Sabres were there, the hockey team. And they have a very successful lacrosse team as well. So really, and then also as you passing out food because in that area, that's the only grocery store in that area in like a 3-5 mile radius. So they were also passing out, groceries as well. And so really, just a noble act in the face of just a horrific situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Buffalo community, Bills coming forward again, stepping up. Ian Castleberry joins the Wise Guys. Heck, he steps up each and every week with us here on the show with Barrett Sports Media on the DC Creasman Jewelers Wise Lines and our NFL Gold Nuggets feature presented by DC at 269 Tunnel Road. All right, so Ian, ESPN's NFL Power Rankings are out, and guess which team is at the bottom? My Carolina Panthers. DC, if you're listening, I probably should have told you earmuffs. Ian, where are your Lions when I need them?
They're only 2 spots above the Panthers in these power rankings, but it's interesting in looking at this list. I mean, you could almost call this the quarterback power rankings as well, because it seems like most of the teams at the bottom don't have quarterback play. And just to go over the bottom 5, you had the Texans at 28, New York Jets at 29. Maybe their quarterback situation is better than other teams. The Lions at 30, the Falcons at 31, and then the Carolina Panthers. And I think this ranking is based almost entirely on the perception of Sam Darnold or the Panthers either getting an upgrade over Sam Darnold or finding somebody who could be a suitable backup. Because if Darnold were to be hurt or is ineffective, what are the Panthers left with right now? They have, P.J. Walker and then Matt Corral. I mean, I think Matt Corral playing, especially early in the season, would probably be disastrous for the Panthers coming from a spread offense in college going into an NFL system.
Yeah, man. You know what? The good news in all of this, there's nowhere to go but up for Panthers fans, Mike.
I will just say this, Pat. An old basketball coach told me this years ago about preseason polls. Preseason polls are nice, but they're like hen's teeth. They're nice, but they don't amount to anything, so just don't worry about it.
Wow, nice. Ian, before we let you go, Mike's man crush, Tom Brady, is soon to be roasted on stage, and it looks like he's in on the joke.
Yeah, I mean, Tom Brady, he does his weekly getting in the headline. And this is Tom Brady's latest headline that he is going to executive produce a new series of comedy roasts for Netflix. And Brady will be the subject of the very first one, I think, scheduled for 2023. So I don't know if the thought is that this is something that's going to happen after Brady retires, again, presuming this is upcoming his final season. But yeah, I don't know if you guys enjoy comedy roasts. I know some people who are really big fans of them. I'm not a huge fan.
It depends.
But but Tom Brady, setting himself up post-retirement. If he's not busy enough calling games for Fox, he's going to do comedy roasts as well.
Mike, wouldn't you love to be on the dais roasting Brady?
I was wondering why my Netflix went up $2 last month. Now I think I know why, because they had to pay Tom Brady. And just can't wait to watch it. I'm sure it'll just be fabulous and interesting. And the big question for Ian, you, and me is, what will Tom do next week to get in the news? So
I can't even begin to fathom.
We've got Memorial Day coming up, so certainly he's going to want to, certainly get publicity about that. And then so that'll be the big thing. What is Tom going to do next week to get himself in the newspaper or get himself on to get himself out there? And so,
good times. As always, Ian Castleberry, you're the best, man. Have a great rest of the week. Can't thank you enough, and we'll be ready to roll.
Okay, stay cool today and tomorrow, guys.
You too, pal. Thanks, Ian. Man, he's got that. It's gonna be 90, almost 90 tomorrow. I think it's supposed to be 89, maybe 90.
Actually, 90 is what my weather. It's going to be hot. That's just, 89, 90.
Yeah.
There ain't a whole heck of a lot different. It's going to be hot. So